All right, Class A, we need to talk about how to discuss the future. And the first thing we're going to talk about are some time expressions that can be used to discuss the future depending on the intention of the speaker. And they are these things here. So have a look at these. Do you know what these mean? You should say, yes, profe. I know that hoy means today. And luego or después mean then, sometimes later. And en una hora or en dos horas, anytime like that. It would say in an hour, in the number of hours. Esta mañana, tarde, or noche would mean this morning, afternoon, night, or evening. Mañana on its own means tomorrow, as opposed to esta mañana, which is this morning, but mañana means tomorrow. Pasado mañana, this is probably the craziest one of them all. It doesn't make any sense. It's used to talk about the day after tomorrow. Pasado usually means past, but in this case it's used to talk about the future, the day after tomorrow. And these two phrases here, el or la próximo or próxima, whatever, semana, mes, or año, or el or la semana, mes, or año que viene are both used to talk about next whatever, next week, month, or year. This second one here, the el or la semana que viene, literally means the blank that is coming, the week that's coming, the month that's coming, the year that's coming, whatever. I have an M here to let you know that mace is masculine because just by looking at it you can't tell which one it is. So these expressions are often used to discuss the future. And let's talk about how we can talk about the future. We can discuss the future by using the plain old present tense, but only I have this one in parentheses because it's not always clear if someone's using it this way, so we sort of want to stay away from this one for now, but the regular old present tense can be used to discuss the very near future, like te llamo después de las clases. I'll call you after the classes, or in Spanish, después de las clases means after school. But if we don't just want to use the regular present tense, you know that we can also use ir plus a plus infinitive to say what someone is going to do. So, yo te voy a llamar más tarde. I'm going to call you later. And of course, the future tense, which we will be learning, can be used to discuss the future, which makes sense. The future tense is used to discuss the future. Like in this sentence here, yo te llamaré mañana. I will call you tomorrow. The future tense is used to say what someone will do. And we'll get to this more later, but the word cuando plus the present subjunctive, again, you don't know what that is yet, but if you can do commands, you can do the present subjunctive, can be used to talk about something that hasn't happened yet. For example, cuando ustedes tengan, this underlined part, is the part that is in the present subjunctive. 30 años no existirán los teléfonos públicos. When you guys are 30 years old, public phones will not exist. So these are different ways to discuss the future, and in these notes we're going to be focusing on this one right here, the future tense. And you guys should love this tense. The imperfect was user-friendly. This is just downright too easy. Because in order to conjugate a verb into the future tense, you take the whole darn infinitive, or if it's one of the 12 irregulars, the irregular stem, plus these endings. And these will be your endings for all verbs. AR verbs take these endings, ER verbs take these endings, IR verbs take these endings, and the 12 irregulars take these same endings. And because you're taking the what? Whole darn infinitive, that means you're not going to have stem changers. You're not going to have verbs with an irregular yo. The only verbs that will be special will be the 12 irregulars, and they still take these endings. Speaking of these endings, let's have a look at them. I have color-coded them for a reason, and you guys know that to explain certain conjugation concepts, I always deal in footwear. We've got the boot, we've got the slipper. Sometimes when a verb has an irregular yo and it's a stem changer, I talk about the high top, whatever. In this instance, I'm going to be talking about the shoebox. What might that be, you may ask? Well, let me tell you, if you guys think about how two shoes fit together in a shoebox, in order to make them fit, you have one shoe with its toe and heel against the heel and toe of the other shoe. If you don't know what I mean, I'll demonstrate this in class with somebody's shoe, shoes, but you've got your E shoe and your A shoe. And if you don't, you must be doing it wrong. I've got 3 endings that start with the letter E and 3 that start with the letter A, and they fit like shoes in a shoebox. And let's also look at these endings. How many accents do you see? I see 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, all except the nosotros get an accent, something we should make a mental and actual note of. So this is how you conjugate a verb into the future tense. So if I wanted to say I will speak, I'm going to take the whole darn infinitive of hablar and add this ending and put the punch on that ending. And because you don't have to write this down, but infinitives end in the letter R, when you say it, the letter R will like go along with these sounds. So hablaré, hablarás, hablará, hablaremos, hablares, hablaron. That is how you're going to conjugate a verb in the future. And now let's talk about these 12 irregulars I keep mentioning. Of course, I have a trick to remember them, and like most of my tricks, you will or will not like it depending on the situation, but it's the best I've come up with. So, your 12 future irregulars. In order to make sure you know them all, I've come up with a saying, and it's a silly saying, but it's still a saying. I've got Kat will send her dog home, Quentin will ponder being tender to the vendor, and Paul will sell Valium. And these words in this saying all correspond to a verb that starts with the same letter as the words. And some of them start with more than just the letters, so maybe you'll start to see where I came up with this crazy trick. So, Kat will send her dog home. The C is for caber, the S is for saber, aber, decir, and hacer. The words that are letters I've underlined here correspond with how many letters they match up with in this verb. The letters that I have underlined here represent the letters that we're dropping to come up with the future stem, because the stem of caber is caber, saber, aber, dir, ar. And then you take this stem and put it in front of your future endings, and you'd get the future tense of these verbs. So if I want to take the future tense of decir to say I will say or tell, I'm going to take dir and put it in front of the endings and get diré, dirás, dirá, dirá, diremos, diréis, dirán. And I'm saying I will say or tell, you will say or tell, he or she will say or tell. I'm having a lot of trouble speaking, sorry guys. So here's the first set of verbs, and to come up with the future stem, for these you just drop one letter or a couple letters. Let's look at what happens with the next set. Quentin will ponder being tender to the vendor. You should be able to guess what verbs these correspond to. If you think they are querer, poner, tener, and venir, you are correct. And now let's look at the letters we'll be dropping or changing for these. For querer, I just dropped the letter E. Now for the rest of them, they're also going to have the letter D. For poner, I'm going to drop the letter E and add the letter D. For tener, I'm going to drop the letter E and add the letter D. And for venir, I'm going to drop the letter I and add the letter D. And now maybe you understand where I got ponder, tender, and vendor. And we have to remember when we say vendor that it comes from venir and not vender. People get confused with that. But remember, which one's usually one of the usual suspects in an irregulars list? It's always venir. And Paul will sell Valium. Also crazy. But what other P verb are we missing? We've already done poner, so this one's going to be poder. We've already done saber, so this one's going to be a different S verb. It is salir. And valer is our last one. And valer is not a verb that we've dealt with much before, but it means to be worth, like to be valued at a certain amount. And here are their irregular stems. For poder, I'm just going to drop the letter E because I've already got a letter D. And for these two, I'm going to drop the letter I and E in the infinitive ending and add the letter D. So these are your 12 irregulars. These are the ones that will not follow the very simple rules of taking the whole darn infinitive plus your endings in the future tense. And your endings in the future tense have an E shoe and an A shoe. And how many accents? 5. All except for the nosotros. And the future tense is used to say what someone will do, like I will call you tomorrow, or today, or then, or in a couple of hours, or this morning, or tonight, or whatever the case may be, or next month, any of our expressions in the future. So this is a quick rundown of your future notes. We will be talking more about that quando plus the present subjunctive a little bit later. Good job taking your future notes. Don't forget, after you take something and write something down, you should also study it. Good job.